Oh, oh, Hari Om, and greetings from Niagara Falls. Throughout the week, particularly on Sundays, there are hundreds, thousands of centers and mandirs around the world where people chant Tera Tere Arpan. And what that means, what is yours is being offered to you. And this is specifically in reference to Tan Manan Dhan, which means one's resources, one's time, one's effort. In a recent course, I was sharing with seekers, we should train ourselves to say things that we mean. If we don't mean it, then we shouldn't say it. Correct? We teach kids this. This applies in the legal world. This should also apply in our spiritual lives, and equally so in our environmental lives. There are many in our community, in different mandirs, etc., who talk about how important the environment is, but don't follow through with living accordingly. In our community, we don't just talk about it, but we try our best to follow through. While I was in Bharat, while I was in Prayagraj, I saw a painting on the wall that said, Jal bachao, kal bachao, which means by saving water, one is saving tomorrow or the future. We don't intellectualize this, but we feel this. And this is why our community is called Loving Earth. We know that this love starts from our earth for us and for all of us to feel this authentically and deeply, so that if we can reach that level of love, for this to flow from us for our earth. This is a Sangha where we remind each other, we encourage each other. In our 4th year of our Loving Earth Sangha, we are tuning into Prithvi Yoga. Yoga here means a lifestyle, a prioritization to love our Prithvi or earth. And I like the word lifestyle because it is something that we just do. Brushing your teeth is part of your lifestyle. Putting your shoes on is part of your lifestyle. Drinking coffee should be part of your lifestyle. Yes, it's just something you do. So for Loving Earth or Prithvi Yoga to be the same way, and this is why we have a lifestyle tracker or a dedication to Loving Earth, where we are sharing these are facets of our lifestyle that we are going to follow, and we're going to be accountable about this. Through Prithvi Yoga, we are beginning to train in this field through the yamas. The don'ts, the stops, that which we are going to avoid in our lifestyle. Thus far, we have explored ahimsa, which means non-harming. And our minds don't work in the form of nons or don'ts. So, what is it that I should be doing? I should buy low chemical. I should make low chemical. When you go to a restaurant, you can buy less salty food, correct? Similarly, if you can't go to a restaurant or that restaurant doesn't have less salty food, then make it at home. So buy low chemical, make low chemical. The second yama was aparigraha, which means non-possessing. Non-possessing. So that we don't get possessed by our possessions. A strategy on regulating this is to use fully. Whatever you already own, use it fully until it has no more shelf life. It has no more utility. By doing so, we will purchase much less, and we will increase the quality of what we bring into our lives. Now, for this month, we're going to reflect on the next yama or don't, which is Brahmacharya. The etymological meaning of Brahmacharya is Brahmani Charati. Brahmani means in infinity, and Charati means to move towards or evolve towards. So Brahmacharya means I am living to feel more inclusive, to feel more infinite. And if infinity is too abstract of a word, then oneness. And if that's still too abstract, then earth. There's only one earth. We all live and depend on this earth. So Brahmacharya is to live for this one earth that loves us. Now, speaking this out in a more English framework, non-harming, non-possessing, Brahmacharya is non-indulging. If one wants to evolve or start to feel infinite, that means one can't indulge in that which devolves us, that which makes us more dependent. Now, we've referenced ultra-processed foods and other matters of our lifestyle. This month, we're going to tune into technology. I was born as a brahmachari when it comes to technology. It is my natural vasana, so that's why I'm not going to join the rest of the workshop. I already live like this. But if I were to share some thoughts on how to not indulge in technology, I would start off with, don't bring technology into your life that you don't need. Really, that means all facets. We shouldn't have anything we don't need. But with technology, there's some sort of societal pressure to keep on bringing in more technology. But if you don't need it, then don't bring it. When I was flying yesterday, then I carry headphones with me. Now everyone calls them AirPods, earbuds, whatever they're called. So I have those old school earphones that plug into the monitor. And my point is, on a plane, they keep offering that to people. But if you have a pair, keep it with you. Why ask for that other pair then? So don't bring it into your life if you don't need it. Next suggestion is, when it comes to technology, the after effects of technology on our inner worlds or our minds is really unknown. Agreed? We don't know that much about what cell phones do to our brains or what social media does to our minds. We don't know. It tends to be more immediate in our study, but the point I would like to make is we don't know what will happen to our environment in terms of extracting what is needed for technology and putting that technology back into the ground. When I recycle this sweater, I kind of know what will happen to it as it goes into the ground. When I recycle this laptop, I really don't know what's going to happen. Where will the keyboard go? Or what will happen to the screen or the nickel or anything that's inside of here? Yes. And if we don't know about it, we shouldn't be so licentious with it. Now, finally, one more way we can practice brahmacharya or non-indulgence with technology is there is a subtle difference between convenience and comfort. Convenience is when you have something in your life that is helping you with your end purpose. Comfort is when you have something in your life, but it's not helping you towards your end purpose. Is it helping you? And if it's helping you, then fine. But if it's not helping you, then not fine. And my mind goes to, let's say, the latest models of phones. If you actually need the latest model of phone, then you should have it. But if you don't need the latest model of phone, you have it not out of convenience, but rather out of comfort. So to reflect on that subtle difference. And again, I told you I have a natural Atma Vasana for Brahmacharya when it comes to technology. While I was in Bharat, I felt so good because when I came to India, someone let me use their iPhone 4. See, here in North America, I use an iPhone 5 and it's too much for me. Like Sri Ramakrishna was affected by money, like I'm affected by advanced phones and so on. So it felt good using an iPhone 4. With these initial thoughts, our workshop will continue and many more important insights and implementations will be shared. Team?
Thank you, Vivekji. Hari Om, everyone. I have the privilege of introducing Sri Sumanji for tonight's workshop. Many of you are well acquainted with Sumanji as he serves as one of Chinmaya Niagara's spiritual guides and leads a variety of classes and spaces, including Happy Hour and Seeking Culture. Sumanji's journey to the mission started after meeting Vivekji at a satsang in Pittsburgh. Vivekji's teachings on Advaita Vedanta resonated with Sumanji and his quest to understand our true nature, and ultimately led to his decision to enroll in the 2-year Vedanta course under the guidance of Pujya Swami Prakashananda at Chinmaya Mission's ashram in Trinidad and Tobago. In his secular life, Sumanji is an IT manager for a battery startup where he manages facilities across the world, working on things like access control, network infrastructure, and cloud storage. His interest in technology stemmed from a young age when he would take apart his dad's devices out of sheer curiosity. Sumanji was so fascinated by technology that he ended up leaving medical school to pursue a career in IT. And good thing too, because when the ashram in Trinidad and Tobago had tech issues, Sumanji stepped in to become the resident Geek Squad technician, helping in ways big and small, from troubleshooting phone issues to setting up the ashram's entire internet infrastructure. And this is what makes him perfectly positioned to speak to us today about the connection between technology and Brahmacharya. Thank you, Sumanji. Over to you.
Hari Om Yashna. Thank you for those thoughtful words. And Vivekji for really bringing a clarity to the philosophy of Brahmacharya and whatever is happening in our chat right now, which I'm most appreciative of. And Yashna, I was laughing, but not at what you were sharing. I was just distracted. I apologize. But very happy to be here. Very happy to be with all of you. Yeah. Yes, Vivekji. Yes. When I think on the word brahmacharya in the more English conducive or orientation that Vivekji has shared as non-indulgence, it reminds me of a story from our scriptures with Narada Muni. And Narada Muni is walking in the street and is passing by a beggar. And the beggar sees him and implores him to give, to fill up his begging bowl. And Narada Muni laughs because Narada Muni is also a beggar. He's penniless. What is he going to give him? Right? So he laughs and he says, well, I have nothing to give, at least in the context of what you're looking for, right? I can offer you knowledge, but not the food or money that you seek. But he says, whatever, I can give you a wreck to someone who can give you those things. Let me throw you a letter for Sri Kubera, the Lord of Wealth, okay? So this beggar, he takes this letter. He's super happy, right? Why wouldn't you be? You got a wreck from a legendary Muni to a legendary holder of wealth, and he goes there, and Kuberaji reads this and smiles, thinking of Narada Muni, and he tells his people, "You fill his bowl with whatever he can carry, whatever it can hold." And they return after some time, and they're sad because they're unable to fill the bowl. Really, they're confused because they have storehouses of treasure, yet they were still unable to fill this bowl. So they come to Kuberji and he's perplexed. They're perplexed. So he goes back to this beggar and he says, "Show me this bowl." And the beggar shows him this bowl, and Kuberji pulls the cloth from it. And lo and behold, that beggar bowl is actually a human skull. And the sentiment that is shared in this story is that there is enough in this world for everyone's need, but not for even one person's greed. And that is what this skull is symbolic of greed, of indulging, rather than this non indulgence that our scriptures encourage us to invoke in to move closer to the infinite. And what this speaks to, what this alludes to, is this nature of our ego. That not knowing its limitless nature, and so feeling limited, it seeks out the limitlessness through the limited. It seeks to expand its sense of self through the body, mind, intellect, and the world. And it does this, and it leads to a feeling of less limitation. It does, but without proper analysis of this nature and of that experience. So it tells itself, this worked. I got XYZ. I worked hard and I got this title. I have these resources. I have these relationships. I feel less limited. But without the proper analysis, it confuses these limited things to feel that if it continues down this path, more and more of these limited things will lead to the limitless. But more and more of the limited will never reach the limitless. And this way of living, this way of seeking, is the confusion of the functional as the fundamental. The world around us and this instrument are not the ends. They are only a means, the means to the infinite, but only with the right vision and the right relationship. And to understand this more deeply, I would like to flow through 3 words in English and then explore their Sanskrit meanings. And we've used this word ego many times today. In Sanskrit, the word ego means or is ahankara, which in Sanskrit means aham karoti iti ahankara. That which says, I am doing, is the ego. And in this capacity, what this means is the ego is that which identifies. Identifies with what? This instrument, this body, mind, intellect. And we'll flow through the framework of this instrument, as Vivekji has often shared it, with 5 eyes. At the level of this body, what is the primary function of the body? The body interacts. I'm interacting with you right now because I have a body. When I don't have a body, like when I'm sleeping, Like if you're sleeping in class right now, you don't know what's happening, right? You don't know your name. You don't know what the room is. You don't know yourself. You know nothing. The level of interaction is zero. There's no interaction. So at the body level, interaction. At the breath level, we say there is input or inputting. And this means all organs of perception. So I'm inputting through my eyes, vision, through my ears, hearing, through my mouth or tongue, taste, so on and so forth. So the breath inputs, which brings us to the mind, which interprets. The mind interprets after the body interacts and the breath inputs. All of that information comes to the mind and that is interpreted by that mind. I like this satsanga. I don't like this satsanga. Why couldn't Vivekji just do the whole discourse? Who is this guy? Right? In the chat, he's doing some himsa against hair. What's happening here? All of these are just interpretations of that mind. The breath and body, they don't know satsanga. They simply input the audio and video, and that's very same body and breath. They don't know Vivekji and Suman. It's that mind that is ascribing and assigning labels and interpretation. Then this intellect is said to instruct that mind and the rest of these equipments on what to do. Okay, maybe this satsanga is not so bad with whoever this guy is, someone, right? I'll stay. I won't hit leave right now, right? So interaction, input, interpretation, finally instruction. And all of this is coming from that ego, which is identifying. And this identification takes the expression of I am doing, I am breathing, I am interpreting, I am instructing. Only when we are identified with these equipments does it culminate as I am doing. And when that ego identifies what we feel, or what it tries to do, is go from feeling limited to limitless through more limited things, this body, mind, intellect, and then through this world. So the limited body, mind, intellect, meant to share. What is the body called in Sanskrit? Does anyone know what this word is in Sanskrit? Could you share in the chat? Sharira. Yeah. And sharira in Sanskrit means shiryate iti sharira. That which is ever perishing is the body. And this ego, what does it try to do? It tries to feel limitless through the limited. The ego identified with this equipment tries to feel limitless through what? The world. And this is the third Sanskrit word that I want to share with you. The world in Sanskrit is called Jagat. Jagat means Jayate Gachati Tishtati iti Jagat. Jayate means that which comes. Gachati means that which goes. And Tishtati means that which as though remains or stays. So in essence, what's being shared is the Jagat is that which is ever changing. This world is that which is ever changing. And I'm sharing this terminology, these words with you, because I want to walk through this logic with you. Simply because when we see this logic and we see our own logic, that I want to find fulfillment through XYZ, articles being circumstances, so on and so forth, we do this and pride ourselves on being logical creatures without proper analysis or examination of what we're trying to do. The logic is that, yes, this will fulfill me, but when we look at those things properly through the lens of what our Shastras share with us, we're trying to fulfill ourselves through the limited body, which is ever perishing. We're trying to fulfill ourselves through the world, which is ever changing. And that logic simply, it doesn't add up. When we identify with this equipment, what we feel is separation. My body, my breath, my mind, my pleasure, my possessions, my positions. And with such a vision of separation, what naturally arises is comparison. Do you ever look at your right and left hand and say, ah, my right hand, you are the apple of my eye? No, both of them are the same. We may say this about our kids, but we have a favorite kid. We do. My parents would tell me, we love you as much as we love your sister, but I knew what that meant. I'm kidding, okay? Back to your hand analogy, or that's too much for everyone. So with our bodies, there's no sense of separation. So there's no sense of this hand being better than the other. But from this notion of separation, there arises comparison. From comparison, there is jealousy. That if I had what you have, I would be better. But if you are better by comparison, what does that really mean? It doesn't mean much. If my sense of self is based on jagat, that which is ever changing, such a way of living leads to a life of insecurity. Nothing that is ever perishing and ever changing, this body and this world, will ever be enough to make us feel secure, let alone limitless. So when we think on this, there is clarity that this identification to function in this world requires this ego. If I'm not identified with this body, how will I interact with the world? How will I eat? How will I use the bathroom? How will I be in satsang? So the ego does have a place when it comes to functionality. But however, as we've continued to allude to, what's happened with all of us is functionality is confused with fundamental. And the practice of Brahmacharya is a means to experience this truth for oneself on the way to peace. Brahmacharya helps us detach from the wrong thinking that joy is in articles, beings, and circumstances, the world, and look inward towards the source, to stop treating the functional as fundamental. The other way Gurudev has wonderfully shared this is Vedantins are all for materials and their use, just not materialism. Materialism where we feel materials will bring us fulfillment. Okay, so we've talked a lot about philosophy, the absolute. So we'll flow down towards something more relatable, relative level. But I want to impress upon us the importance of this because we first have to train ourselves on how to think. It doesn't matter once we know how to think what the context is. Then this satsang could be on technology, it could be on the food industry, it could be on the makeup industry, it could be on the fashion industry, it could be on whatever industry. Once we know how to think about our instruments and as they relate to the world, we're empowered to independence. So, with this in mind, we'll dive into how we have begun treating our relationship with technology as fundamental and not functional. Okay. How many of you have social media by a show of hands? Yeah? Okay, most. I was anticipating everyone to put both of their hands up. How many of you have used more than one social media platform? Yeah? Okay. A fair number. Maybe not. Wow. Okay. With whatever medium we have, okay? How many of you make posts on social media? Even less. Okay. So then we're going to theorize this relationship, or we're not all sharing satyam, truthfully. So let's find out. Let's see how we relate. When we make a post, is that it? Full stop. We just post and we're free. Everything's great. You just run away from your post. You're arms are flailing, you're feeling light, you're feeling happy. That's hardly ever the case, isn't it? Really, we post and what we seek is, hey, did anyone comment on this? Okay, did someone like it? Did someone love it? Wait, you disliked it? Why did you Okay, now we need to start DMing. I need to figure out what happened here because no one should have disliked this post, right? Right? So as soon as we post, the post isn't the ends. The post is a means to what? More fulfillment. People to acknowledge and appreciate the greatness of what? Myself, my travels, my experience, my greatness. We seek some sort of fulfillment from the responses we get from posting, from this association and the accessibility of our digital life anywhere on our devices. So when we have such a relationship, what becomes of our relationship with this device? If I'm getting a hit of dopamine, a sense of joy from a response to a post, and my device is the means to experience that, I'm constantly going to start checking my phone, isn't it? I just posted. Did someone like this yet? Did someone love this yet? Where are my notifications? Did they get disabled? Did I fat finger my device? What happened? Has no one seen the picture? 15,000 people are following me. Where are they? Right? Like that becomes the sentiment. And it gets to the point where, the phone's not buzzing. There's no notifications. But what are we doing? You're just pressing the button, tapping the screen. Maybe it didn't come through. You're seeking it out. We're seeking it out. And that alludes to this nature, this relationship we have with this device. And the word I'm revolving around here that starts with an R is rely. We rely on this technology in so many ways. The one I'm expressing now is this desire for joy, this hit of dopamine. But we also use them as a status symbol or a means of expression. We put them in fancy cases, or we don't put them in cases so everyone can see exactly what model it is, right? There's so many things tied to these devices and their access into our digital lives, and so on and so forth for our sense of peace and our sense of self-worth. And this is such an indication of this confusion of the functional as the fundamental. It's almost an addiction, our relationship to this technology. And a practice here is to really develop the right relationship with our devices. And a simple practice I engage in is in the morning, I don't use my phone as an alarm clock. I have an alarm clock that serves as an alarm clock. It actually is like a sunlight thing. It just shines bright light on your face until you wake up. But there's a dedicated device. So the first thing I don't do is grab my phone. And then what I try to do is stay away from my phone for the first hour, for the first 2 hours. Because what am I actually doing with that device? And this is because there isn't much clarity about what that device does specifically. Does it make phone calls? Does it make video calls? Does it get me that hit of dopamine from my posts? Does it allow me to make those posts? Is it my artificially intelligent assistant? Does it play music? Does it allow me to stream videos? Does it allow me to buy things on Amazon? It allows you to do all of those things. What doesn't it do? What isn't it? If we don't know what its purpose clearly is, we can't purposely have the relationship we want with it. So begin to set some boundaries. And this practice in the morning is a simple way to do that. So at the relative level, we see this reliance on this technology for joy. And it's the opposite of brahmacharya. It is indulgence. It's unchecked indulgence. The second point I'll make here is, what did we say the effect of ego's identification was? What is that experienced as? Started with an S. Separation. Yes. So from identification, we find ourselves feeling separate. From separation, we begin comparing. And through comparison, what we experience is jealousy. I'm just going to use iPhones as this example, okay? I know there's going to be a lot of Android loyal cut like people like this. So this isn't personal. We're just flowing through one. Hold up the equivalent Samsung Galaxy S25, whatever version it is. Who knows what it's on? How many of you, by a show of hands, have an iPhone 16? Yeah? Hold it up. Hold it up. Yeah, you have it up? Okay, okay. You all feel uncomfortable. You're like, why are you calling me out on that? Okay, iPhone 16 Pro. Even better, right? Pro. Because whatever we're doing with our phones, if it's pro, it means we're professionals, right? Okay, so less people raising their hands, but some of us have them, but we're all feeling so squeamish to be like, yeah, I have that latest. Okay, so iPhone 15. How many of us have this? Okay, more hand. 15 Pro. Who's a professional? Who needs that extra processing power? Okay, iPhone 14. 14 Pro. Anybody? Okay. It's a very, very timid crowd. Okay, it's just me yelling, disturbing my neighbors, whatever. Okay. And I knew what was going to happen, and I feel this is exactly what happened. As I asked each of you this, no one wanted to be forthright about it. Everyone was just feeling squeamish. Because there's that sense of comparison happening right now, isn't it? Here, though, because we're associated with Sattva, no one wants to be like, yeah, I got that iPhone 16 Pro. But in another circle, you're gonna be like, you're just gonna put it on the table casually, right? Face down so everyone can see that camera bump. They're like, whoa, there's 3 circles on yours, right? Super, super, I don't know what the word's called. Slick, right? But here, everyone's like, no, no, this isn't the place. But you see all of that comparison happening. And this isn't with just phones, though, right? It translates to cars, to houses, to jobs, to relationships, right? Everything in our lives. From comparison, jealousy. That if I get that, I will be better. I will be happier. I need more to feel that I am more. That's insecurity. And this is where Brahmacharya really helps us rethink this, to right this wrong thinking, to moderate. Our Shastras have been sharing this knowledge freely and openly since time immemorial. And the only people that have been taking advantage of this is the marketing departments of our technology giants. That's it. They leverage this sentiment every year. That's why all commercials, 30% increased computing power than last year. Does anyone know what that means? Why are they always using percentages? Because if they gave you the actual number, its insignificance would be even more apparent. You think if your phone battery for this new model will now last 5% longer than last year's version, right? Ooh, 5% longer. With respect to what? If it lasts 12 hours now, 5% of that means like 30 minutes, maybe less. And that's depending on what you're doing. If you're really a pro user on that phone, even less. This is how these marketing departments, they leverage this idea of comparison, jealousy, insecurity. And our Loving Earth team is much more fresh on this terminology. I know nothing. They taught me the phrase that I'm alluding to. I believe it's perceived obsolescence, something like this. Perceived something. They'll share it in the chat. Okay? And I think that's what I'm talking about. Okay. So I think that's how it's pronounced, and I think that's the idea. But I think what it means is the idea is if you have perfectly good kit, but by comparison, by these marketing departments, by other people having newer stuff, we begin to feel inadequate. And we look at this more intimately. oftentimes our relationship with these things is not that they are inadequate, but we feel inadequate and hope to feel adequate through them. So we keep getting more and more devices. We got to upgrade this and upgrade that. If you think on many of these devices too, they're so powerful and capable. Everything the computer I'm on can do, a tablet can do, a phone can do. By a show of hands, how many of you have a phone? All of you will raise your hands. We already went through one survey. Everyone's, yeah, now I don't have to tell you what model it is, right? Makes sense. How many of you have two phones? Two phones? That makes sense too. Some of us may have a work phone, a personal phone. Got it. How many of you have three phones? Okay. Okay, I know you're not going to raise your hand even if it's true. Okay, so phones, done. How many of you have a tablet? Two tablets. What if I change that word tablet to, how many of you have an e-reader? Like a Kindle, something just for reading. Okay, more hands. Everyone's like, I don't want to, this now we've been called out on three devices. How many more is he going to ask us about? Okay, e-reader, an e-ink writer, something you can take notes on that feels like paper. Another innovative device we have. Okay, a laptop. Okay, a desktop. Yeah, multiples of these. You have your personal laptop, a work laptop, so many devices. Yeah, not to make us feel bad, but the idea here is convenience or comfort, as Vivekji has shared. Convenience or comfort. So many of these devices can do everything we need, yet we keep getting more of them. So that question is, why so many? We probably got it right when we thought about it. Our intention was clear, but that relationship and that intention, they don't line up any longer. And a personal example I'll share of this is I remember in 2021, I started taking a class. So I got an iPad Pro because I was like, I need to write on it and take notes. Within six, I told myself I won't use this to stream anything. I won't put any apps on it. It'll just be for note taking. That thing is just a glorified streaming device and games. That's it. If you want to play like Minecraft or something like that, that's the device. I don't even know where the pencil is. No more iPad Pros. No more iPads. For me, right? But what I'm sharing here is the intention was there, but that relationship just devolved. That purpose-driven device has gone gray. And this is that confusion of the functional and the fundamental. And the word here, if the last one was rely, the next R word here in this confused relationship is require. We require this technology to feel less limited. In this confusion of the functional as fundamental, of materials as materialism, we rely on and require technology for peace. And a culture of such thinking leads to our third R in the tactile space. And this third R is the repercussions. When our notion of happiness is reliant upon and requires technology, our relationship with it becomes wasteful. This is what happens. And I'll give two examples. And I'm way over time, and then I'll share dynamics. The first example I want to walk through you with, which I feel many of us think is innocuous, streaming. We're doing it right now, aren't we? We're in a meeting and we're streaming this video. The carbon footprint of streaming video. What does this look like? But let's walk through it in a different context. How many of you binge watch shows sometimes? Okay. Don't feel bad about it, okay? We're not persecuting anyone. Okay, how many of you binge watch satsang, okay? How many of you binge watch satsang? You feel better? Raise your hand. Okay? This is independent of what you are binge watching. Okay? And the idea here is it's become part of our culture. If you look on streaming media platforms, there's a genre, binge worthy, binge in a weekend, right? It's not foreign to us. And when we think on this, I'll run some numbers by us. 1 hour of HD content, okay? I don't think many of us have HD TVs in our home. We have like 4K televisions, 8K televisions, right? The humans are here. I want to see their pores. That's the intensity of the resolution. So I'm sharing you in the basic streaming level HD. It shared that 1 hour of streaming HD content is equivalent to zero point 0.6 kilowatt hours of electricity. So if you binge watch something, let's say over a weekend, one season or series is 16 hours of content. To watch all of that content in a day, in a weekend, is about 10 kilowatt hours. The average household in America is said to consume 30 kilowatt hours a day. So us binge watching a show, let's say, is 12 to 16 hours, is equivalent to a third of the energy required to run a house for a day. Running that house, not including you binge watching a show, right? We're binge watching a show and we have the laundry machine running. We have the Instapot going. So many other things are happening. And it seems so inconsequential, but the energy required to support data centers, the internet networks, the devices in our home to accomplish this task add up. Now, how many people are in your home streaming at the same time? That's why in all of these platforms, now after things keep going, there's a question, are you still watching? And if you don't reply, it ends the stream. So energy can be saved. So the carbon footprint of streaming, the repercussions of reliance and requirement. This is one. The second is e-waste. What is e-waste? It's what you all have in your home right now. It's the computers that you've cast aside. They're like I don't know what to call this, but you loved them when you got them, but now they're not so shiny and new, so you tuck them in a drawer or you put them in a storage bin that's in your basement. They're the computers, the telecommunications devices, the TVs, the monitors, and it goes all the way to our fridges, our freezers, any of these home appliances. And it shared that in 2022, we generated 62 million tons of e-waste. This is up from 2010. It's up 82% in a decade. And in 5 years, by 2030, it's said to be 82 million tons. It's going to go up another 30 plus percent. And it's a problem because all of these fancy pieces of technology, they have so many toxic chemicals in them, from lead to cadmium to lithium in these batteries to mercury, whatever. And when these are buried, when we don't dispose of them properly, they leak into our soil. They become parts of the food we eat. And they're not just a danger to ourselves, but to our Bhumi Mata. Why we're here. We're hurting her. And how is this e-waste to be handled? This 60 plus tons we've generated in 2022, who knows, 2025. Often there's a degree of dismantling, extraction of the hazardous components, and it depends, or rather, what is required varies from place to place and device to device. And this brings us to our dynamics, which I realize we're really over time. So maybe it's something we can do outside of this space because I don't think you're going to be able to do it right now in a few minutes. I asked you how many devices you have, yes? And we didn't want to share, honestly. And you probably just thought about the ones you use, but what about all those other ones, right? Begin gathering those outside of class tonight. Then gather the infinite number of cables you have that go along with those that no longer do anything either. You're using them as rope or Tether or something, right? Grab those two, all of those things that have become obsolete, and begin researching in your town, in your municipality, how you responsibly dispose of these. This is your post satsanga action item, your reflection adventure of the week from our satsang. The other thing I want to share with you here is those devices that are still functional, still relevant, find avenues to donate those. And a key thought when thinking about donating technology is it still relevant? Remember, if you're trying to donate a piece like a laptop or a tablet to a school, children need to use this with technology that's continuously advancing in a regular way. So if it's like a Windows PC running, Windows Vista, it's not going to be helpful to them. They're not going to know what to do because none of that software is applicable anymore. So think on this as well. I'm going to pause there and we'll have some time for some dialogue. Cool? Okay.
Thank you, Sumanji. So if anyone has any questions for Sumanji, you can virtually raise your hand.
Was it too intense? Or it made no sense, both. Or like many of us, you're not just in front of this screen, you have two more screens in front of you, right? Hariom Deepa.
Hariom and Pranan Sumanji. Um, so the laptop that we're using, we use one laptop for the family. The browser update of late, it's not, it keeps telling us the browser cannot be updated, but the laptop is working fine. So what do we do in that situation? Because kids are now demanding a new laptop. You're trying to see if we can still use the same. What happens in such situations, Sumanji? Thank you.
Yeah, totally. Find another browser. There's so many browsers. From what this sounds like, is it a Chromebook? It may be a Chromebook.
It's Mac.
It's a Mac. Okay. And the browser can no longer be updated. I'm sure other browsers are available for that Mac. Or the question should not be that one needs the most up-to-date software or browser. It should be that is security for this device still supported? If security is still supported, that means the operating system is supported and the device isn't obsolete. The company is paying attention to it. So one can continue to use it.
Thank you, Sumanji.
Sure. And I'm sure there are many other technology professionals that can speak to that if I'm speaking incorrectly. So please do correct me if I'm sharing inappropriately. Hariom Ganesh.
I know, Sumunji, really enjoyed the discourse today. Um, you mentioned kind of, going around your house and finding, um, kind of figuring out what to do with, I guess, essentially your electronic waste. Are there any like resources for this that you know of? That I mean, we have stuff that kind of just gathers in a closet until we're trying to figure out what to do with it. I don't know.
Yeah, that's such a good question, which is why it was your reflection adventure of the week. To find out, because oftentimes I feel when things are given to me, I'm much more casual about what to do with them. Like so much content flows in through, let's say, Chinmay Mission Niagara. How many of those emails are we opening and reading completely? When we do the research, we become invested in what we research. And what could be shared at a national level may not be applicable at the state level, which is why it's important because even within that state, counties will have different regulations. So I would start, at least where you are, looking to your county's policy on dealing with e-waste, because each landfill will organize and dismantle these in different ways. So begin there at that county level. And I don't know the county in which you live, Ganesh, so that's the extent to which I can support. And one other thing I want to speak to in the context of what Deepa had asked about this browser update, and it relates to all of our phones. And I share this with my family members also. Every year, we're pushed to upgrade to the newest operating system. It doesn't matter what device you have, whether it's a phone, whether it's a tablet, whether it's a computer. And the question of upgrading is not that it is required. One should consider this in two perspectives. Is what is being offered by the new operating system important for my use? One. The second, if it's not, is what I am doing on this operating system secure? And what this means is security still offered for what the device I'm using? Because this is the most important facet of the device and our use, that our information is protected and secured, because there are always these digital hackers or whatever trying to get to our information. And so long as the company is supporting security updates, you don't need to upgrade your device. You don't need to. So think of this from the perspective of security and functionality. If the next iOS update is going to give you more enhanced memojis that you can make faces and look like a dragon or Narada Muni, maybe if it's Narada Muni, upgrade. But if it's just a dragon, who cares? Why do you need to look like a dragon and send that memoji? Because you're going to do that. It's going to slow your whole phone down. And then what are you going to need? The iPhone 17 Pro, 18 Pro, the professional's profession, right? They'll put another prefix or affix after that one, and that's the one you're going to need. So try to think of it in this context. Hariom, Divya. Divya looks like a collection of plants.
Divya looks like a collection. Thank you so much for this very enlightening, session. I have a question for any guidance that we have on for our kids who have a very different relationship with our devices, right? They are using it to connect with their friends and classmates. So how can I really struggle with how can I empower my daughter, 13-year-old, to really sort of have that right relationship? She just keeps telling me, you don't understand how I'm using this phone. So every day I'm reminded that her relationship with this device is very different than my relationship with this device. So if you can have any guidance, I would really appreciate it. I really struggle with this, of drawing this boundary for young children who are really growing up with these devices.
Yeah. Totally, Divya. The first, I remember sharing that same sentiment with my pops. You don't understand. You don't understand what I'm doing when I'm playing these video games. You don't get it. I get where your daughter is coming from. I get where so much of our youth is coming from. And so I'm sharing it this way because it's a cop out. I felt when I said that it was a cop out. And maybe it's not with your daughter. Okay. But what can be done is if one says, you don't understand what I'm doing on this phone, then understand. Start a conversation. Explain to me what you're doing. Because if you're just working on your phone 23 out of the 24 hours of a day, Well, then we need to talk about your relationship with your work too, because you're 13 years old. You should also be playing and doing fun things. And so, what I'm trying to express here is have this conversation about what is being done on the phone, and then figure out how to implement a relationship with that phone that isn't dependent. That there is time to use that phone for recreation, and there is time to use that phone for responsibilities. But there isn't time to always be on that phone. And that'll begin with having a conversation about you don't understand. That, I'm putting it in air quotes. Take the time to understand what that is and allow her or any child to be heard in that capacity, to listen, not listen in such a way that you've already made up your mind, but to listen openly, because that's how we all are as humans. We want to be heard, isn't it? And when we are genuinely heard, we become open to listening as well. So I'd start with a conversation and then develop a relationship you both can agree on. I hope that helps. Pause there. Realize we're at 10 p.m. If there are any more questions, maybe we can take one more if everyone's okay. If not, we'll chant or I'll hand it back to our team and they'll lead.
Thank you, Sumanji. So this was really deep and light at the same time. So we really appreciate all you've shared, and hope this will give us it will give us the food for thought for the rest of this month. And we do have a WhatsApp group that we stay connected with, and I think all these resources and questions that others have will continue that conversation there. We also have our tracker that for every month we are entering in our practices. So if everyone could please enter what they're planning to do, and then also share their progress with us, that would be a good way for us to keep each other accountable. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Hari Om.